to start with. Okay, so hey everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the cost of disobedience, my and sharing my story and being very open and transparent about the things that I've dealt with when it came down to being disobedient. And even after like giving my life to God back in 2020, even after that point, I still had moments in my life where I willingly chose to be disobedient. And the thing with disobedience is it always comes with a consequence, which is God still, even with the consequences that we get, God still give us grace in it, which is undeserved. Like, so yeah, I just want to talk to you guys about it. And to be completely transparent, the two areas of my life where I had the most, well, that I could think of that came to the top of my head was relationships as well as financial disobedience. So, and Morgan, since it's me and you in here, you can chime in with it whenever, or you can chat in the comments, like in the chat messages part, because I more so want this to be more of like a conversation. Ryan is I think I did I admit Ryan right. Oh, hey Ryan. We are literally just getting started. But yeah, so I want to be open and transparent with y'all, share my story and what all I have learned by willingly choosing to be disobedient to what God has called me to do. So anyways, I do want to hit on a couple points when it comes down to obedience. So I was reading in the Bible, and I have some notes right here too to kind of help me go along with this. But I was reading in the Bible Deuteronomy, and y'all, when y'all get a chance in y'all Bible study, read the book of Deuteronomy. It's so good. So it was basically talking about the Israelites and how they literally turned a 40-year, 11-day journey into 40 years. And I could relate to that because I took a season, like God sent somebody into my life for a season, and I prolonged the season for like 5 years. And that person was literally only supposed to be in my life for a few months, if that. And that kind of goes into disobedience. Like the Israelites, they were being disobedient, which made them have to be in that cycle for 40 years to get to the promised land when God only wanted them to take 11 days. And I want y'all to think about just in your personal life, like what are y'all holding on to, or what is costing you? What are you doing that is of disobedience that's costing you to stay in this season for much longer? And another thing too that I learned is delayed obedience is still disobedience. Like me, because I finally got to a point where like, okay, God, I'm done being disobedient. But it was like that's still disobedience because it's delayed. We are supposed to be at a point where as soon as God tell us to do something, we do it. Not 5 years later, 3 years later. So if there is a business, if there's a school, if God is calling you to fast, whatever God you feel like God is calling you to do in this season of your life, it will cost you if you are disobedient and not listening to him. So yep, every time you go ahead of God, it costs you. So let's get into my story. So um for one, back in when I was in like eighth grade, yeah, it was the summer of eighth grade. I got into my very first relationship, and it was a homosexual relationship. So I was dating a girl, which was actually my friend, and we was dating. Well, we started dating, and through that time, that was like my first real time experiencing real disobedience. Going against God's will and what He wants for us. And when I tell y'all that relationship ended so badly, it caused me to be very distant from my mom I was in trouble all the time. I was so far from God. Not that God was far from me, but I was far from Him. Like, I wasn't trying to hear nothing about God. I wasn't really interested. Um, I had my very first heartbreak, caused so many different insecurities and cycles from that season and act of disobedience. That's why I always say, like, you cannot play with it. You can't play with sin. You can't play with going against God, because it trickled down so many different effects in my life, like different insecurities. That was my first time ever getting cheated on, and I was so heartbroken. And that just could have been avoided had I been obedient to God as well as to my parents. So if you, and I know, how old are y'all, Morgan and Ryan? Ryan 17. Okay. And do you still live with your parents or your guardians? Morgan 20. Okay. Yes, I do. Y'all, let me tell y'all, if I could go back and tell my younger self something, bro, listen to your parents. It don't matter what type of relationship you have, um, with your family, but well, no, I can't say that. No, what I would say is whoever is taking care of you, have your best interest at heart, who loves you and stuff like that, obey them. They will not lead you astray. My mom kept telling me, leave that girl alone, like stop talking to her, stop being around her. And I did not listen, and it cost me. Another thing too that I want you guys to think about, God will never bring someone in your life who will take you further from him. So that's a good way to know, like, if something is sent by God or not. And crazy enough, not only just that relationship, but the second relationship that I got into, it was keeping me very close to sin, very, very close to sin. And God is not about to bring you something that's going to have you in sin, that's going to have you in fornication, that's going to have you, not spending time with Him. And I get it, like when you're first into like a relationship or into something new in your life, you start to devote attention to that. But whatever you're doing should bring you right back to God. And if it's not, it's probably not sent by God. And so now I want to get into later on in my life, because at that time I was in eighth grade. Now, um, what I'm about to talk to you guys about now is, I think I was in 10th grade. No, 11th grade. So it's my 11th grade year. Is that right? 11th grade year of high school. Yeah, that sounds right. Anyway, it was my junior year of high school, y'all. And I was working at this fast food job, and I met this guy there, and he was just very nice guy. Well, still am. I don't know, good spirits like that. Like, I don't know, cling to. So anyways, fast forward, we started dating, and the relationship was good at first, but then since I had been introduced to, what is it called? Oral sex. Yes. Trying to think of the name of it. But yeah, so in my homosexual relationship, we were like, she would give me oral sex. And it's crazy because that opened up a portal to now in my new relationship. I'm like, okay, well, I want my new boyfriend or whatever, because I ain't know nothing about God. Well, I knew of God, but no relationship with Him. Didn't know that that was wrong. So I was just doing what I was doing. And so I was like, okay, I want my new boyfriend to give me oral sex. And so what happened was, so anyways, me and him was doing that, like oral sex or whatever, and bringing me further from God. And I remember one time I asked God, because our relationship was going so good, so I thought. So I asked God, I was like, mind y'all, now at this point, I'm in 12th grade. I'm about to like go to prom and stuff like that. So I asked God, I was like, God, like, should I lose my virginity to him? God was like, no. Girl, the relationship fell apart after I said that prayer. I don't know what like made me want to say that prayer, because of course God is not about to ordain sex outside of marriage. God would never go against His word. But I don't know. Something in me was like, pray and ask God, should you lose your virginity to him? So, anyways, the relationship went downhill. So that was my confirmation. Like, nah, you do not have sex with him. Whatever you do, do not have sex with him. But I was still engaging in oral sex with him. So, anyways, fast forward, God had been called me at that, like, to like let the relationship go, period. But I was still holding on. Um, like a few weeks after that, I found out he was like DMing a girl on Instagram. And so we broke up. But a few months after we broke up and without contacting each other or anything, I reached out to him. And so, anyways, we started dating. So that started a cycle, us breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together. And that was me being disobedient. I should have just listened to God the first time back in 2018 or 2019. And I should have just been, when God told me to let it go, when God started showing me the signs, like, okay, you need to get off this, I didn't listen. I kept dating him again, kept being with him. And although he didn't continue like the whole cheating thing in that season, um, it would still just be small stuff that I was like, I don't really want to be with him. But he was convenient for me. But I want to let y'all know, like, what's convenient for you is not always good for you. And yeah, I'm talking about relationships right now, but this can apply to any area of your life. Convenience is not God. Like, convenience is not always God. So, anyways, I would keep going back to the relationship. And I'm telling y'all, years. So now, fast forward to this point, 2020, I give my life to God. And me and him, we like had been broken up for a full year, no contact, no nothing. So I was like sold out to God. Like, I was like, yes, like, break every chain. The relationship was done. A full year, y'all. No contact, no nothing. So I'm like, oh yes, y'all. After that year, I was on Snapchat one day and I saw one of his videos pop up and he had a new girlfriend. So me not understanding how the enemy works, because the devil want to try to get you off of your path with God. So anyway, so I was like, okay, let me text him and be like, oh, him and his new girlfriend. So if you're just being petty, I was being very petty. She said the enemy always try to bring people from our past back. Exactly. And I didn't understand that because I had literally just given my life to God and still a very fresh Christian. So I didn't even understand the way that the enemy worked. So anyway, I text him or whatever. I was like, oh, you and your girlfriend so cute, trying to see if he will still entertain me, which he did. And so he said, I wish he didn't, but he did. And so, anyways, me and him would like talk on the phone and stuff like that while he had a girlfriend, which showed me his character, but I ignored it. But we're gonna get into it. So, anyways, he had a girlfriend, but me and him would be like talking on the phone or like texting or whatever. And so, fast forward, him and his girlfriend at the time had broken up. So I'm like, okay, y'all broken up. So I'm like, will he date me again? So, we ended up dating again. Mind y'all, when God tell you to let somebody go the first time, God don't tell you that for no reason. But anyway, so me and him, we started dating again after I had just in 2020 had like the best year of my life because I wasn't dating him. I was sold out to God. I had started my business. My business was booming. Like everything was going so good in my life. And then I gave in to that. So, anyways, started dating him again. And then after that, what happens? The relationship was actually pretty good. Like I was doing Bible study and stuff with him, trying to force him into, trying to live right for God or whatever. But that don't work. That never works for long. If it do work for a little bit, it's quickly out the window. So we did that for like a few weeks and then it was like nothing. And so anyways, fast forward, we're dating, da 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 da. It's long distance though, because he's in the military. So we were just really just talking on the phone. So fast forward, yeah, we 20 2021, 2022. Yeah. So we're dating all the way up until like 2021. Um, towards the end of 2020, yes, towards the end of 2021, we break up because I think the communication was bad. Remember this, the communication started getting very, very bad. Like we just would barely talk. And so we broke up. I was like distraught. So I was like, dang, like, and so anyway, 2 months after we broke up, he texted me. He was like, hey, I'm coming to Georgia to hang out, like, to visit family because he was in the military. So I'm like, okay, you know, do you want to hang out? Y'all, I invite him because y'all know by this time now I had got my first apartment. So I hang out with him, we go out to eat or whatever, and then I invite him to my home. Y'all, when I tell y'all conviction on 10, like I knew I shouldn't have did that. I knew I shouldn't have invited him to my apartment, but I did. And so anyways, he spent a couple nights over. We're engaging in oral sex. Mind y'all, I know I shouldn't be engaging in oral sex at that time, back in 2021, last year. I know I shouldn't have been doing it, but I was being disobedient to God. So, anyways, fast forward, he ended up going back to the Navy, to the military, whatever. And I just felt like very bad. I was feeling so distant from God because I knew I was going against what God wanted me to do. And so, um, anyways, I wasn't doing my Bible study or nothing, just feeling very convicted. Like I didn't even want to, I don't even think at this time, I didn't even start the youth group. Like I didn't, God had been calling me to start the youth group, but I didn't start it because I just felt like, God, how can I help other people? And I was still in that, last year, whatever. But anyway, so it just brought me so far from God. Well, I brought myself far from God. God was still with me, but I was feeling far. But anyway, so fast forward, um, what happens? He go back to the Navy, to the military, and we're still talking or whatever, but I'm just feeling this very strong conviction. And I'm like, you know what, God, I want to make a covenant with you to never date this man ever again in my life. So I don't know. I just felt so bad. I'm like, why am I even with this man? Like, I just knew we were unequally yoked. I just knew he was just bringing me right back to sin and the cycle of sin. I don't know. The conviction of God was over me. So I made, to break the cycle, I made a commitment to God. And I said, God, I will never in my life date this man again. And crazy enough, after I like said that and I broke up with him and everything, and I read in the Bible in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 4 through 6, it say if you make a promise to God and if you do not keep that promise you made to God, he will wipe everything away from you. So if y'all are in a cycle or a season in your life, and if you try to use this method and like make a commitment to God, and if you don't hold through with it, God don't like that, basically. But so anyways, I make the commitment to God. I break up with him, whatever. We don't talk for months, and then he reaches out to me. And so he reaches out to me. We like talk on the phone, but in my head, I'm like, I will never date you again because I made the commitment with God, and that's one thing I do not play with. Is the commitments I make to God. And so me and him, we were like on the phone playing this friend game. Mind y'all, do not leave the door open. Oh, that's so powerful. Y'all, when God tell you to let somebody alone, don't be trying to be friends. Because what I was trying to do, I'm like, okay, God, I make the commitment that we would never date again, but we can be friends. And it's like, no, you cannot be friends because that is leaving the door open for the enemy to come in and attack you. So anyways, we playing this friendship game, and y'all through the game, because the game, like you just ask questions or whatever, and the person's supposed to answer the questions. And they were like deep questions, personal questions, stuff like that. Y'all, through the game, he admitted that the time we broke up, um, at the end of last year, was it the end of last year? Yeah, he was having sex with somebody in the military while we were dating. He was sleeping with somebody, and I found out months, 10 months later, like through that conversation. And I just completely said, I will never talk to this guy ever again. From that conversation, I was like, I will never talk to this guy ever again in my life. And that just showed me, like, when you be disobedient to God, God is literally trying to protect you. Like, God is not removing something just because. He's removing it because he do not want, he's trying to protect you from something that he know that you don't know. So, anyways, I found out he was cheating that time or whatever, that sleeping with somebody while we were dating. And I was like, wow, God, that's why you didn't want me to be dating this person. That's why you didn't want me to be around this person. And that's why I say every time you go ahead of God, if you still try to linger around with people and date people who you know God ain't calling you to date, you will never have peace in it because it's not of God, it's not sent by God. Um, Another thing that I want to tell you guys, make sure you guys set up boundaries, have parameters, have walls. Understand that, hey, no, maybe you can't be friends with your exes. Maybe if you feel like God is trying to speak to you about your finances or about your productivity or whatever it is that you could be going through that you feel like you're being disobedient to God about, you have to set up boundaries so that you can stand strong about whatever God has called you to do. She said, how do you know if a relationship is worth keeping? The way now, today, the way that I know a relationship is worth keeping is if it's bringing me closer to God. If we are strengthening each other for God, like if He's bringing me closer to God, if let's say this, if He's living according to God's will, and if I'm living according to God's will, and we are not pulling each other into sin, we're not pulling each other away from God's will for our lives. That's how I now gauge if a relationship is worth keeping. Um, Also, talking to God, letting God minister to me about it, and also testing the spirit by the fruit. Like, how does this person act? Are we equally yoked? Because even in the Bible, it say we should not marry unequally yoked. Like, if you're a believer, they don't really, they know God, but they not really on all that. Y'all unequally yoked. But that's how I know as of today. Um, Another thing, when you're obedient to God, it leads to so much peace. She said, if a relationship is from God, then the person will bring you closer to God, not far from Him. He will respect your boundaries, etc. Right. And that's exactly how you will know if it's worth keeping. And it's crazy because I just be thinking, like, had I let him go in 2018, I probably would have been married, like, to my husband. But y'all know, delay is real. Like, when you going against God's will, you entertaining people who God don't have for you. You got friends that God been told you to let go of. You at a job that God been told you to let go of, or you not at a job because you doing something else that God ain't even called you to do. When you haven't started the whatever God is calling you to do, God wants you to do it. You haven't went back to school. You haven't been diligent, or you know not being lazy, or whatever the case may be. It delays our blessing. It delays the blessing. So I feel like if I would have let him go in 2018, I probably would have met my husband by now. But God not gonna send something if I'm still stuck on the past. And one thing about it is we will always get what God has for us, but we can very well delay it. We can very well delay it. Um, and another thing too that I want you guys to think about is do not have selective obedience. Don't say, "Hey God, I'm gonna be obedient to you in this area, but this other area, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do." And it's like, no, 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 no. You cannot have selective obedience. You got to be obedient in every single area of your life. And one thing about it, obedience, it will hurt. Like when I made the commitment and the decision to never talk to this person ever again in my life, that hurt. But in Second Timothy chapter 3, verse 12, it literally say, for those who live godly, they will suffer persecution. We will go through suffering. We will go through hurt and pain while trying to live godly. But that was the best decision I could have ever made, was to never give this person access to me ever again in their life. And it's not just for me, it's because it's for me out of obedience to God, out of knowing that God has better for me, out of knowing that this is keeping me far from God. Every time I'm around, or every time that I was with this person or talking to this person, it just felt like I was getting further and further from God. And what's more important? It's like, what's more important, God or that? And it's God every time. Um, oh, that's a good one. When you are disobedient, it not only costs us, but it costs somebody else. Because guess what? I would not be right here talking to you guys right now had I still been in that relationship, because I would never even started the youth group. Because at that time in my life, I felt so unqualified. God told me to start the youth group. I think it was like back in March. Back in March. I didn't start it till now, not till right now, but I don't think I started it till 2022. God told me to do that March 2021, I think. I don't know. I have to look back on my notes because I journal about everything. But my disobedience not only cost me, but it costs the people who I'm supposed to reach. So if it's something in your life that you feel like you're being disobedient on, it's not only about you. Somebody else is supposed to get something through your obedience. And I was like, man, like I probably would have been start youthful teams. I probably would have been started ministering to the youth and stuff like that. But I was like, I can't do that with what I got going on. No way. But God uses our mess so that I can be here today on this Zoom, talking to you guys about disobedience and being able to share my story and how staying in that, I didn't gain nothing. I gained a lesson to teach others, but saying, as far as, I don't know, it's like I lost more than I gained. It's never worth it. It's never worth it. And let me see if I had anything else on my notes that I wanted to say. Yep. I'll put that one in. And another thing, financial disobedience. God will be speaking to me about saving money, being a good steward over my money. I would do it for a little bit, then just be spending money recklessly. And it wasn't until like my income got split in half, or until like God put me in a season of like very, very, very tight income, where I was like, whoa, like, okay, God, I hear you. And it's like, it shouldn't have to take all of that. Like, if we just listen to God the first time, like, we don't have to go through so much turmoil to get the lesson. But a lot of times God, like, oh my God, now I have to put her in a situation or let her go through this suffering so that she can get the lesson that I've been trying to tell her. So I don't wanna have to do all that. I don't wanna have to go through all that just to learn what God been trying to tell me. So yes, y'all, I just want to talk to y'all about the disobedience and to wrap the whole relationship thing up. Yeah, it ended with that conversation. Like, I just let him know, like, after that conversation, I was like, yeah, no, like that I don't want nothing to do with you. Like, and I made the commitment to God, and I'm just like, hey, listen, we will never ever date again, and I never want to. And this, it sounds kind of harsh, like, oh, I never want to talk to you ever again. But it's not that I have forgiven him for it because that happened so long ago. But I've forgiven him for it. But it's just unhealthy for me to keep this person close to me, which is why I had to cut the communication off for good. And maybe in 10 years from now, maybe, we get hi, bye. But as of right now, in this season of my life, it's not healthy for me to be in communication with a person while God is still healing me and still, taking me to my next stage in life. But do y'all have questions about disobedience? Do you guys like want any advice on certain things? But yeah, disobedience is a very present thing, and we all go have things in our lives that God is calling us, to change. But we're human, period. Y'all don't have any questions or oh, and a very important thing to mention is like even throughout that whole like journey of disobedience, God still graced me in the end to have walked away from that on and off relationship with my virginity, with like I don't know, just with my sanity, with everything. Like God is so good. And it's crazy because and I mean, even if you didn't walk away with your virginity or with it, it's still so much grace. The fact that we're even still here, the fact that you had the strength to get out, like, or if you're planning to get out or whatever you could be going through, like, just understand God's grace is sufficient and He forgives you. He forgives you, forgives us all. Do y'all have any questions about anything? She said, I can't even think of a question. That is fine. But y'all, I really enjoyed this. I just wanted to just come on here and share just I guess you could say my testimony or just my story of being disobedient and how you don't gain nothing. It's not worth it. Listen to God the first time. She said, is there a way I can talk to you about something privately, maybe through group me? Yeah, are you in a group chat? If you in a group chat, then you could do it. If you're not in a group chat yet, then oh, she is in a group chat. Okay, cool. Yeah. You can send me a private message. But yes, y'all, thank y'all for joining in. And yeah, if y'all ever need anything, wanna talk, y'all can send me a private message. But yes, y'all. Bye y'all. I enjoyed the meeting. Thank you for being obedient to God. Thank you. You're welcome.